Hi, it's Whitney Wiley, and thank you for joining me for HabiTalks. This is where I have the honor and privilege of speaking with authors and thought leaders about habits. And today, I am joined by Jennifer M. Harris, and she is a contributor to One Habit for a Thriving Home Office. Jennifer, how are you?
I am good. Hi, Whitney. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. I want to congratulate you on being a best-selling author. How does it feel?
I know. Unreal, I guess. Surreal. It's exciting. It's exciting to be able to participate in such a big project like this that has such a broad impact and hopefully is really doing some good. So it feels great.
Absolutely. Who was the first person you told when you found out?
Well, there were two of them, my mom and my sister. I sent them the text with the picture of the book and my picture in it. So, and they were pretty excited.
That's cool. It's nice to have people who will share in your success with you and celebrate with you.
Absolutely.
So the book, A Thriving Home Office, is a bestseller, and we find ourselves in a time where, I don't know, 5-6 months ago, all of a sudden we had this huge increase of people who were working from home who hadn't worked from home before. What's your situation with working from home?
So I'm pretty fortunate. So I'm an entrepreneur and I own my own business, Look Within HR Consulting. And so I do a lot of my work virtually anyways. However, I do love that face-to-face as so many of us do. So I go in and visit the clients that are in the area and I see them fairly regularly. So about 6 months ago, I became 100% virtual, and I really don't have intentions of going back for a while, just given the news and kind of the outlook of whatnot. So I'm working with a lot of small businesses, however, that have done that same switch, right? So they were either completely 100% working in the office and now they're 100% virtual, or they're doing kind of that in between, right? Where they are doing a little bit in the office or kind of doing adjusted schedules. And so just working with a lot of them to see what is the best option. So right now I'm 100% virtual, but before that I was a lot of working from home a lot too.
Okay. Yeah. And so you mentioned your clients, and some of them just thrust into this and are probably like you, not looking necessarily to go back to working, having their employees come back into the office full time. Now that you are actually kind of going through this with them, what do you feel are some of the advantages that gives you in working with them now that you really understand what they and their employees are going through?
I'm 100% relatable. Let me tell you. And if you get an opportunity to read my unhabit that I put in my chapter, you will see that the unrelatable relates to the fact that I have a lot going on in my household. And as do most of my clients. And, you know, in my situation, it happens to be that I have a spouse working from home. I have 2 elementary age children, kind of going to school from home, kind of not. And then I have a dog who's not used to having us all, you know, here all the time. So I have a busy household, as many people do. But what that looks like for each individual and each of my clients is different. Right. It may not be children. It may be an ailing parent. It may be a college age child that has had to come home and kind of re-engage back in the household. So, but the point is that I'm relating to them because we all have challenges and it's how we work through them. And also the other thing is that I think prior to this pandemic, we were in a place where a lot of people worked remotely, but it was in a way that we pretended like we weren't remote. So we were engaging with our peers, we were having meetings, we were working, pretending like we were actually in the office. Now, the tide has changed, right? We all know, it's very obvious. It is obvious today that I am in my home office, as are you, Whitney. And so that has changed. And so now it's about figuring out what is that balance and how do we show up. I noticed a couple individuals on Zoom were calling into meetings that were calling in from their bed. So that's kind of an interesting one. Maybe not from your bed, but just figuring out what it looks like. And so
Right.
I do relate to my clients a lot in terms of I'm going through this just like you. And in some cases, I'm learning just like you. But in other cases, I have the benefit of the backing and the resources and the HR community to really help provide ideas of how you can help ease that transition to being 100%.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And Jennifer, I think you're right. Each of us has our own different set of challenges, that a unique dynamic. You mentioned the dog not used to having you home. I happen to have one.
Do you?
And I think in the early days, he was like, what are you people doing here?
Right. You're a
And
mistake.
then now I can't get him off my heels. Right?
Yes. Now it's going to be really hard if you have to leave again.
So, and I have been working from home for 2 years. So, and I have felt, I think a little bit like you, where it wasn't a huge change. There's some differences, but it wasn't a huge change. So, let's talk a little bit about the book and what your contribution to the book is, without giving too much away about your habit. And you did mention your unhabit already. But let's talk about your habit and unhabit kind of in general terms.
Okay.
And your habit was to not, no, it was this balance between your meetings and your virtual meetings. And so
Right.
was there something that made you say that this is the habit that I think I need to share with the world?
Yes. It was my experience. So I am what I call a high functioning introvert.
Okay.
So a high functioning introvert means you would never guess from this conversation that I'm actually very introverted. So after this call, I'm going to have to go and have some quiet time by myself.
I'm going to go
And
take
so,
a nap. So
yeah.
I feel you.
Right? And so people would probably think you're an extrovert as well.
Right.
And so that's where it stemmed from, was I realized that I was used to having, before we did a tremendous number of Zoom calls or Microsoft Team calls or whatever it may be, is that I had more balance of calls and meetings versus work. And so work time, I should say. And so I realized that when I was doing Zoom call after Zoom call after Zoom call, I was so tired, so edgy. I just couldn't, I almost couldn't continue on with my evenings. And I tried to figure out what it was. And this concept, I know many of you listening have probably heard of Zoom fatigue. It's a real thing. And I started actually reading up on it. And I realized that people need to first and foremost understand themselves and what gives them energy and what doesn't. And so if you know that, then you can figure out what is the right combination for your workday. And that was the piece that I just wanted to share. It wasn't, it's not some magic where you should have this certain formula of 40% meetings and 55% time and 5%, it's not a formula. It's what do you need personally? And so it was more about an awareness of how you work and your personal preferences, and then making sure that you have a schedule, a daily schedule that is in alignment with that.
That is such a good point. I am often saying that it is our vision for our life, right? Our vision for our life, our work. And when you know that and couple that with your values and your priorities, it's easy to be able to make those decisions about what works for you, because what works for Jennifer Harris is not necessarily what works for Whitney and for the person that's sitting next to us or one of your clients. And so the more we can understand ourselves, the more we can find the right balance. And balance isn't 50-50, right? The right balance, like you said, maybe it's 60-40, maybe it's 90-10. And only you know what that is. So as you are talking with maybe your clients about finding the balance, what are the kinds of things that you're having them ask themselves or think about?
Well, first and foremost, it's always about the business goals, right? What are we trying to achieve as a business? And then also from a leadership perspective is what is the kind of culture that they want to have. And so this 100% virtual or partial virtual working from home is creating new dynamics of culture within
Right.
each business, right? Regardless of the size of business that you are. And so those are some of the questions that we are asking. And you actually commented on it earlier, which is around what are your values, right? What is most important to you as a business, and then what is important to you as if I'm working with a business owner. Myself am a business owner and am very clear about my values. And so every day, all the decisions that I make about, how I work, where I work, when I work, who I work with, are always in service to those values. So those are some of the very first questions that we're talking about. And then the second thing is, how employee friendly are you as a business, right? What do is it important to you that your employees feel safe to work from home, that they don't feel like they're missing out? So it's about the communication. It's about the involvement. It's about how are you going to hold your employees accountable? They need to know what's expected of them. So those, I'm coming at it obviously from a real HR perspective, but
Right.
these are all critical things when, the reality is we're still in a business setting. We're in a home, it's personal.
Right.
But we still work for a business, it's professional. So all of a sudden, this separation, physical separation that we once had, excuse me for that, but this physical separation that we had is no longer there. It used to be business during the day and personal at night.
Right.
Well, now it's all of it all the time. And, that is actually, for me, what's been so poignant about this time is that my business is called Look Within HR. Right? It's all about looking within. And when I came up with that name, I realized that it is about your life, your business is personal. It's personal and professional. And so we are just working through it. And that's what I'm working through it with my clients right now.
That's amazing. You're talking, we don't know each other. We haven't met each other before.
Just today.
And but you're talking and I was like, it sounds like me.
Oh,
It sounds like me, which is interesting. And I did mention this to you as we were just chatting before we came on, that when we did the launch a couple of weeks ago, Steve was throwing out these facts about all the contributors to the book that I was interviewing that day. And he kept coming up with these things that we had in common. Yep. And so you and I have a couple of things in common.
We do.
So I just, for fun facts, tell us a little bit about the work that you did back in Washington, or for people back in Washington.
Yes. And actually, it actually ties into what I'm doing now. So when I was younger, I was sure I was going to be a lawyer. That was the plan, right? Be a lawyer. And so when I got to college and it was time to start applying for 3 more years of law school, I thought, I don't know if I can do 3 more years of law school. So I did an internship in DC, and I went back there and I thought, I can do politics. I don't have to go to law school. I can do politics. And I had grown up and my father was a politician and I had been around it all my life. So I packed up right after graduation of college and I moved back to DC, and I worked for my congressman, and which was a wonderful opportunity. And I was his scheduler. So I had the opportunity to work on the Hill, see the ins and outs of the political world, got to visit the White House a few times, and got to just see the ins and outs of Capitol Hill and how you got things done. It was a wonderful experience. And I ended up coming back to the Northwest. I'm a Northwest girl, to run a state Senate campaign. So I became more local there and did it on a local level. And so I did politics and I was going to do law. And then my plan was to go actually, and I know you didn't ask this, but I'm just going to share real quickly, my intention was, okay, I'll do politics. And then I'm going to go back to school later to be a marriage and family therapist. I thought I'd be a therapist. And so long story short, here I am in HR. I do law, I do politics, let me tell you, and I do therapy all in one with HR. So it rolled all into it. It was clearly where I was meant to be, but the politics is always a little bit of my heart.
As they say, success leaves clues. And as you are, working through life, learning lessons, trying jobs, doing different things, you get pointed in the direction of something that ties to who you are and back to the point about values, right? So the work that you're doing is helping other people find their values so that they can create environments that allows other peoples to live out their values as well. And
I certainly hope so.
So our connection with that was I haven't worked in federal politics, but I worked in state politics as a lobbyist and a lawyer. So if you ever decide to go back to law school, let me know.
I'll give you a call. You'll be the first person I call.
We could talk law school. I loved law school. But
Good.
I will say this, like you, when I was in college, I was like, I am done.
Right?
This is it for me. And it was later, few years later, where I wanted to do something that I thought having a law degree would help me do.
Mm-hmm.
You discovered you could just go into politics. I had in my head that the best way to get into politics was by being a lawyer. And so that's why I went to law school, to get into politics, and it served me well. But
there's so many different there's just so many different avenues, and everybody has a different story, which I love.
Absolutely. And so let's talk a little bit about your unhabit, which is about, if memory serves me, apologizing, right? To stop apologizing for things that matter to you.
Mm-hmm.
Just what was the inspiration for that?
Well, without sounding repetitive, it's my values. It's my value system. I'm, like I said, I'm incredibly focused and always the forefront of my mind what my core values are. And I found, I know we keep speaking kind of to this pandemic, but it's just it's been such a life-changing time for everybody, that I found, in addition to, remember those Zoom calls that I was doing one after another, and it was exhausting, is that in addition to that, I was constantly apologizing. It literally just falls out of my mouth without, I don't even know how many times I say it. And I will say, without, trying to be controversial, is that this happens very frequently with females in the workplace, is that we don't even know we're saying it. We just apologize. It's almost like a filler even at times. And so I realized that I was doing this, and a friend of mine who works for a very large corporation, which shall not be named, we were talking about this, and she actually stood up and said at a very large staff meeting, "I'm done saying sorry." And I thought that was just so telling, and such a moment that it became me too. I'm done saying I'm sorry.
Wow.
I'm done apologizing. I probably apologized during this call for that phone ringing, right? I mean, it's just so real. This is just the life that we live. I'm here doing an interview with you, and my home phone is ringing. And it's just those things that I didn't need to apologize to you. You don't care, right?
No,
and
I didn't even notice until you said something.
Yeah, okay. So it's that. It's again, so everything has become a combination of so personal and professional, that I realized that I was apologizing because I always thought I had to be professional out here. But the reality is that, I'm at home. So if you hear two boys yelling in the background, I take responsibility for maybe my boys yelling, but not the fact that they're yelling in their own home.
Right.
They can do that. So I shouldn't be apologizing. And so I'm just working on that. I'm working on not saying sorry. And that's what I'm encouraging others to do, because it's exhausting. You feel bad. You feel, I'm sorry this is happening. I'm sorry that's happening.
Right.
Okay, let's just not focus on it. Let's move forward, be productive. You're hired to do a job and you do it well. So let's just move on.
I absolutely agree. That, along with being able to say no and setting boundaries, are like the two big things that I think, particularly for women,
Yes.
I'm sure men have it too, but particularly for women, are things that we can do that would alleviate us of so much guilt and angst, and just step into our power and do what we're capable of doing.
Right.
Have you read, or did your friend read the book "Girl Just Stop Apologizing"? I think that's the name of it. Girl Stop Apologizing.
It's on my list. I have not read it. That's Rachel Hollis, right? Mm-hmm. I listened to her podcast, but I have not read the actual book.
It's on my list. I think it's downloaded and I'm waiting to work my way down to it. So,
but kind of in lines with that. Yeah.
Exactly. So Jennifer, it's been an awesome privilege to talk with you. I wanted to know if you had any final words you wanted to share before we wrap up.
I do. I just had one more thing I wanted to share, because you noted on it earlier, is about how working from home and working virtual is about finding what's right for you. It's different for every single individual. And so that is exactly why this book exists, is you've got tons of authors that all have different ideas about either what works for them or advice or things they've seen out there. And so the great part about this book, and it tells you this right at the beginning, is that you don't read it from start to finish. You go and you pick the pieces that work for you.
Yes.
So get the book and know that, yes, you can read it from page 1 to page 400, I think it is. But go in and look in that table of contents and see what resonates for you, so that you as an individual can get the most out of the book. And
Absolutely.
I think that is the way to just really take it and get the most.
I appreciate you bringing that up. I was going to share that. The good thing is that at the beginning of the book, there's some really great information that lays out what habits are, why habits are important. Read that and then do exactly as Jennifer has suggested, that you either open the table of contents and read through it, pick something that resonates with you, or you can do this.
Right.
That looks like a good page, and start there.
Right. That's right. Got my book right here.
And if you are a friend of Jennifer, start on page 383, because
that's right.
That's where she is.
Chapter 63.
So Jennifer, it was an absolute pleasure having you on Habit Talks. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too. Absolutely. Thank you.
I will. Thank you. And for the rest of you, if you don't have your copy of One Habit for a Thriving Home Office, get your copy today. The link is in the post. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day. Bye.